Hey guys, ViewMasters reactions here, and I stayed up last night till 3 a.m. to watch The Dirt, did a live thing, it worked out pretty good, and then I posted it this morning. It was running fine, bunch of people started watching it. I trimmed down like 2 minutes in the beginning and the end just to make it easier for people so they didn't have to find the spot where it goes 3, 2, 1 and they could watch along. And it is still in editing limbo. Had I known it was going to stay in limbo like this, I would have just waited till I got home from work and watched it like at 4 o'clock. But it is what it is. I can't change that now. I love staying up till 3 a.m. and watching these things live. So I'm going to plan on doing that a lot of times. If you guys want to sit up with me, I'll post them live and then post the video of the live reaction on my channel. So you can watch it after or you can watch it live with me, anything you want. But I'm going to do that. I hope I get the mic by the next time I do this. But hopefully by the time you guys watch this, the watch along is up. But anyway, this is the review of The Dirt. Spoiler alert in case you didn't know. So if you don't want to know the spoilers, I mean, it's on Netflix. You can go watch it right now. You don't got to go to a theater or anything. But if you want to avoid spoilers, then don't watch this. But if you know Motley Crue and you're a fan, then you probably know most of it anyway. Going into the movie, I knew nothing. So the movie starts out in the 80s, 1981, the year of my birth, which was fun. So I knew a lot of what was going on as they graduated up to what they were because I was born in 81. Now, granted, I don't remember when I was born, obviously, but I remember a lot of the events from being younger as I was growing up that were happening, which is probably also why I wasn't a huge Motley Crue fan. I was born when they started forming the band, so was a youngin'. This movie, right off the bat, pulls no punches. It lets you know what kind of movie it is. And this is going to be graphic, and I'm going to use language and profanity and gratuitous sexual acts. So warning for foul language and stuff like that if you're watching. But this movie starts right off with, I believe it was either Nikki Sixx or Tommy Lee, I can't remember. They're literally just banging chicks all over their hotel room at a party, doing drugs in every room, chugging bottles of alcohol. And then within the first 3 minutes, they literally have a girl take her clothes off, goes down on her and squirts all over the room. And everyone is getting covered in her fluids, so to speak. That is how the movie starts. So if you had any doubts, I feel like I heard this somewhere too, because I feel like someone was like, no, trust me, they go there. Because I went into this thinking, all right, I'm probably going to see some crazy shit. But right off the bat, I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I couldn't believe they showed that. I don't think I've ever seen that on camera, like on film in anything, ever. Like, I don't like, I mean, obviously there's actual porn, but I'm saying like in a film and television and stuff like that, insanity. Then it goes like Motley Crue, and now it jumps to like when he's 12 years old. It basically shows that his father was extremely abusive. This is Nikki Sixx now. He gets slapped around all the time. His mother's a horrible drunk. At one point, he has her arrested because he grabs a knife and rips his freaking forearm open, like a cut like this friggin' big, deep cut. Calls the cops, blames his mom, and the lady's basically like, if you're lying, you know you're going to get put up in foster homes and stuff like that. And he does not give a shit because that's how horrible his life is. He basically gets old enough, he legally changes his name to Nikki Sixx. It was Frank something, I forget what it was, but it was Frank something, legally changes it to Nikki Sixx. Starts going around doing gigs, performing by himself. Tommy Lee finds him, and so starts the band. Now you have lots of funny things involved, like Pete Davidson is their record producer or works for the guy. They have a guy named Doc who is hilarious. Like, he'll literally just punch them and beat them into submission because they're so drunk and wild, put them to bed, and then wake up the next morning and be like, hey guys, good morning. Like, no big deal. Nothing's wrong. Crazy stuff. Pete Davidson in the movie has a hot girlfriend. I'm pretty sure at least 2 members of Motley Crue, maybe more, are banging her while he's dating her. So they have no loyalty. At one point, Nikki Sixx is banging Tommy's girl, the girl he's going to marry or something like that. They all just share girlfriends. They do whatever they want. At one point, Mick Mars is the only one who is Ramsey Bolton. Ramsey is the actor. I can't pronounce his name. I'm sorry I keep calling him Ramsey, but it's Iwan. I'm thinking it's Ewan. Ewan. I don't know, but I'm going to call him Ramsey Bolton. He plays Mick Mars. And at one point, he even says to the guys, he's like, do you guys realize how many women you're sleeping with? And that these women, you roll into town, these women sleep with you. Aren't you aware that they're sleeping with all the other bands? They're groupies. You're not like the one and only. You're sharing these girls with everyone else. Instead of being like, oh, that's right, that's horrible, we shouldn't do this, they go, oh my God, it's like a brotherhood of rock stars and we all share the same women. We could go like cross country and all bang the same girls and it's like a brotherhood. And I'm like, and Mick Mars is like, you guys are fucking crazy. And Mick Mars drinks a lot, but we find out that Mick Mars drinks a lot. Well, one, he might just want to drink a lot, but two, he is in constant pain because he has a bone disease that is basically like, I'm assuming, like, I think they said it applies pressure to his spine. So he's like almost like shrinking, I guess, or just like getting crippled and like crouching over, so to speak. Cause I don't know if it was intentional or I just thought it in my head because it was 3 a.m. and I was tired, but he looked like he gradually got shorter and shorter and was like becoming more and more like hunched over. Hard to explain, but maybe that was in my head, but I think that was the intention of the director. So he is constantly drinking, but he doesn't like bang every girl under the sun. I'm sure he does his fair share or hooks up with girls, but like he's more of the monogamous type as far as that group goes. Then at one point they're touring with Ozzy. Ozzy Osbourne is talking about how you got to be crazy in this world. And he whips out his dick, pisses all over the ground, licks up his own piss. Tommy Lee is like, I'm going to do that too. I want to be crazy like Ozzy. Whips his dick out, pisses on the ground. Before he can lick it up, Ozzy shoves him out of the way and he goes, now this is crazy. And he licks up Tommy Lee's piss too. Shit like that happens this whole movie. That is the kind of movie you're watching. And it was amazing. Now, don't get me wrong. I think it's horrible behavior and these guys are lunatics, but it's entertaining to watch. There's like a thing they do whenever they go to the hotels. I don't know why, but it's something they do every time. They got to throw the TV and smash the TV, be it out a window or on the floor. There is one scene where I don't even know if they knew the guy, but he's got a brand new Mercedes out front of the hotel and they throw the TV out the window from like the 2nd or 3rd floor and it literally goes through the roof and it blasts into the floor of the car. Had somebody been in that car waiting for that gentleman, they would have surely died horribly. And this is just like what they did on a Monday. This is like what Motley Crue did. Now I've heard the stories, I've seen things and like snippets and true Hollywood stuff, but nothing like this. And they go all out in this movie and I love them for it because they don't pull punches. It is what it is. And it's like, if you don't want to watch this kind of movie, we're going to let you know in the first 3 minutes. So stuff like this just goes on the whole time. They tap into Tommy Lee's marriage to Heather Locklear, where Nikki Sixx is supposed to be his best man. You then see that Nikki Sixx is basically at an all-time low when this is going on. He is, at one point they say he's doing $1,000 a day in heroin. He's injecting that much. Now, I've heard stories like Willie Nelson, I think, and those kind of guys and stuff doing like thousands of dollars worth of weed or cocaine or this or that. Heroin is an injectable. He's injecting it with needles. And it is not an expensive drug from what I gather. I'm told that heroin is so highly used in poor areas and stuff like that because it is cheap and gets you the greatest high. But then like you can never get that high again. It's a horrible thing to do. So if they're doing thousands of dollars in injectable heroin a day, I don't know how this guy didn't die. But spoiler alerts, if you were still watching and you didn't hear the 100 spoiler alerts, at one point in the movie, Nikki Sixx overdoses. People are coming to his house like, oh, you want to try this heroin? Oh, you want to try this heroin? And he's like already like on crazy amounts of it and they're just injecting more and more. And he just goes boom. His lights don't even shut off. He doesn't even foam at the mouth or click out. He is just like eyes wide open, like gone to the world. I thought he was dead. I didn't know Nikki Sixx was still alive or anything. Maybe he died. By the end of the movie, they tell you that their last tour was in 2015. It was on like New Year's Eve or New Year's Day. They performed, I think, in Times Square. So that means they were all still alive at 2015. I'm assuming they're still alive now, or they probably would have said, like, in memory of Nikki Sixx or something. Basically, at that point, he dies. They literally report on the news that Nikki Sixx is dead. They show the news, and Vince Neil and all the guys are watching, and they're like, oh my God, Nikki Sixx is dead. He's dead. Everyone, and mind you, it's not like nowadays where social media can be like, false alert. Like, they probably went hours or maybe a day before they realized he was alive and they reported it. So half the world probably thought Nikki Sixx was dead, if not more. And then he's in the ambulance. I don't know if it really went down like this, but according to the movie, he's in the ambulance. EMT is basically like, time of death is blah, blah, blah. The other EMT is like, Nikki Sixx ain't dying on my watch. I don't want to be the guy that let Nikki Sixx die. He just starts jamming him with adrenaline needles, and he friggin' Nikki Sixx jumps up and is alive. What does he do? He goes home and injects more heroin. He like does more. He even says himself, I'm the luckiest man on earth and I hit rock bottom. That's when you know you need to stop. Injects himself again. He's bleeding down his arm, passes out, wakes up. He's like, now doing heroin after having that happen. That truly is rock bottom. I'm thinking this guy is a goner. I'm thinking he already died. Now we know he's alive, but I'm thinking this dude is dead in a week. He actually gets the whole band back together. They all go to rehab. I don't know how good or how honest they all were, but they claim they've been sober, all the whole band sober for a year, but they're constantly fighting. They're arguing. You could see they're totally on edge because they're not having their drugs and alcohol. I'm sure they're still hooking up with women. They're at strip clubs and stuff, but it ain't the same. And they basically feud. Then you got Mick Mars, his hip shatters, so he's got to get bone, like a hip replacement. Now he's like even more hunched over. This is when he looks the worst, but he's still kicking. He's just like weak. Tommy Lee eventually marries Heather Locklear. Nikki Sixx like totally almost blows the whole wedding up because he's his best man, and that's when the whole drug thing happens. Then Heather Locklear, it's shown, leaves him because there's a tabloid in the paper. I'm assuming the woman in the paper was Pamela Anderson, but they just didn't use her name. Maybe she didn't want them to use her name. Or maybe it was someone before Pamela, but it was a tabloid heading where it said like Tommy Lee's seen with porn star or something like that. So I'm assuming, but there could have been someone right before her that was, I feel like I said during the movie, I feel like there was 3 women he was involved with: Pamela Anderson, Heather Locklear, and someone else. Maybe that's who the other person was, but I can't remember and I didn't look it up. So I'm not exactly sure, but we'll say it's Pamela Anderson. If I'm wrong, write it in the comments and let me know. He ends up leaving Heather Locklear. Now he's got the whole thing. We know what ends up happening with that, with Pamela Anderson, the sex video, but that's not in the movie. It stops like right around where he meets her or meets this woman that's in the tabloid. Nikki Sixx stays sober and doesn't, I mean, I was impressed. He stayed clean. He didn't do drugs. The rest of them kind of like were like, fuck this shit. Vince Neil pounds a shot. Tommy's like secretly drinking on the side. I'm sure they all went back to what they did because we saw Tommy Lee's video years later and he was drinking and doing stuff. So clearly they all didn't stick to it. I don't know, maybe Nikki Sixx didn't stick to it either. But according to the end, he lived till 2015 or is probably still alive now. I never looked that up. I honestly thought the movie at the end would say like Tommy Lee did this, this, and this. Mick Mars did this, 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 and this. They never said any of that. So I kind of just jumped into this review and I didn't like do further research because this is a review about the movie. It doesn't really matter what happens after because it's not part of the movie. You guys let me know though, because I'm just curious if any of you know what the deal is or what the status of all these guys is. I'm assuming they're all still alive. But if you're interested in that, by all means, write it down below. I thought the movie was amazing. It looked great. All the actors were great. The surprising thing was, you'll notice if you watch the watch along, I constantly am going like, hey, look, it's that guy, but it's not that guy. Or, hey, look, it's Lady Gaga. Totally not Lady Gaga. I don't know if I was delusional because it was 3 or 4 in the morning at the time when that happened. I kept thinking I was seeing famous people. And then I'm like, wait a second, that's not that person. And then some of them didn't even look like the person. I just like would see a face and be like, hey, I don't know if it's because there was such a lack of famous people or I'm always used to seeing famous people and being like, hey, that guy's from this or hey, this girl's from that. But no famous people in this movie. The only recognizable people were Ramsay Bolton from Game of Thrones, was Mick Mars. Pete Davidson from SNL was their record producer, Tommy something. Pete Davidson, SNL. And honestly, that's the only recognizable faces I can remember. Nikki Sixx's mother looks really familiar. Put it this way, she's not famous enough for me to be like, Bing, she's from this movie. So I like that though. They went kind of like Bohemian Rhapsody, where they threw a couple faces here and there. Rami Malek. And Rami Malek was famous from Mr. Robot, but the rest of the people, besides like Mike Myers doing a little cameo here and like Aidan Gillen from Game of Thrones doing a little cameo, stuff like that, they didn't really show any famous people, which I like because I feel like stuff like that takes away from true stories. If you throw them in big blockbusters, that's fine. Everything's fine. When it's a true story or a documentary, I feel like putting famous people in, or at least a lot of famous people. Put it this way. Say they made like Tom Cruise, Nikki Sixx. I would be like, this is Nikki Sixx's story, not Motley Crue, because Tom Cruise is such a famous actor that why would you put Tom Cruise in that role unless that was the role you want me to focus on? Even though Ramsay Bolton is a known face, he's still not like a list actor. Spoiler alert on Game of Thrones, he died off a couple seasons ago. So I haven't seen him do much of anything besides like Inhumans and maybe like a couple things here and there, but he is not an A-list actor. I actually prefer they use a B-list actor. On the contrary of using A-list actors, I think it's cool if they throw B-list actors in. Like Pete Davidson's not A-list, he's SNL. He does a little thing here and there, but people know the face. That's okay because it's nice to be able to be like, oh, I familiarize with that face, but I'm not like, Ramsay Bolton's in it. That means that Mick Mars is the guy to watch in this. And in all honesty, Mick Mars probably is the last guy to watch in this. I think Mick Mars has the least going on. You got Vince Neil. He's got to be the biggest womanizer of them all, hooking up with girls left and right while he's got a wife and a baby girl. And the baby girl gets a stomach tumor. And I was like, everyone else that knows Motley Crue knows the outcome of this, but I don't. And I at one point was like, oh, she's not going to die. They're just making you think that because they want you to feel for Vince Neil. And she dies. And the little girl who plays the daughter is so adorably sad. She's just like amazing child actor. This girl, though, was amazing. Like she literally looked at Vince Neil and was like, Daddy, please don't make them cut me. I don't want more. Oh, my God. Absolutely heartbreaking. And then she ends up dying. Luckily, I thought Vince Neil was going to go off the deep end because I knew he was still alive because I've seen him in stuff like celebrity shows, like reality shows and stuff. But I thought that he was going to go off the deep end and he like stayed strong and kind of held it together and they all fixed their shit. But the acting is great. And Tommy Lee was focused a lot. Nikki Sixx was probably focused the most, especially in the beginning, showing why he was what he was and how he became that way and stuff. I would say Mick Mars, besides like the bone disease and the fact that he was like the stable one and kind of kept them all together, I would say he was the least talked about in the show. Also because he was more stable than the rest. So it was probably not fun to talk about his stories because he didn't have a whole lot of stories. It's like, well, I banged 3 girls and did $1,000 worth of heroin. What'd you do, Mick Mars? I drank this bottle of Jack and went home. It's like, okay, so he was the least talked about, even though he was the most recognizable face. Nikki Sixx was Machine Gun Kelly, who is very famous, rapper. As far as the movie world goes, only musical people would know who Machine Gun Kelly is. And even then, you might not recognize him because he's, one, not himself, and two, a lot of people just don't recognize musicians, like unless you're a big fan of that musician or they're major stars like Lady Gaga or Eminem or something like that. I also heard there's a lot of beef going on with Eminem and Machine Gun Kelly, but I don't know. I don't really listen to like a whole lot of music. Like I listen to music on the radio and stuff, but I'm more of a movie and TV guy. So I don't know the whole beef going on, but it was funny that I just used Eminem as a reference and just remembered that. Anyway, movie's amazing, guys. You guys, I highly recommend it. It's on Netflix now. Hopefully, by the time you guys watch this, my watch along is done processing and you can watch it with me. But if not, I am sorry. I'm working on it. I'm trying to get it out there. Keep an eye out for it if it's not up when you see this. But gonna end it there, guys. Let me know what you guys think. Comments down below. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.